Well, hello there, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon, or even good night, depending on where you're joining us from today and where you're tuning in from. My name's Nigel Smith. I'm going to be your host here today for episode 29, would you believe, of District 71's Toastmasters Unplugged. This is a series where we go behind the curtains of our district and our members, and even further beyond. This is going to be a live, yet largely unscripted event where I get the chance to ask questions of our guests about public speaking, personal growth, and mindset. Now, tonight's episode is called Who Knew? And we'll be exploring the unexpected, the life-changing opportunities and the lasting connections that all began with a Toastmasters meeting. But before we start, if you do experience any form of sound issues, in particular echoes from our episode this evening, trust me, that's on us. Your kit is probably fine and we'll manage it as best as we can. We've got a less than elegant knife and fork workaround to do this, but you might get the odd disruption in sound quality, which we shouldn't apologise as Toastmasters, but thank you for your understanding. So first and foremost, let's meet our guests. We've got three wonderful guests here with us this evening. And our first guest, well, tonight proves there are no barriers to a life of profound service and achievement. He spent 17 years leading operations in the IT sector, served as head of production at the examination board of AQA, and is a dedicated magistrate and community trustee. But his story took an unexpected turn when a personal challenge to study law during lockdown led him to passing the bar course. This past year, he was officially called into the bar by the Inner Temple, and this autumn, he joins a Crown Prosecution Service here in the UK as a pupil barrister. In recognition of his massive contribution to public service, he was also awarded an MBE at Buckingham Palace. He's also the immediate past district director of District 91, the south part of the UK, and is currently president of Wessex Speakers. So please help me and welcome our incredible guest here this evening, Steve Vere, MBE. Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm very good, Nigel. Thank you very much indeed. It's strange what people say, isn't it? When you hear yourself being introduced, it never sounds like you, and that's entirely true. But thank you for your kind words.
Well, I did look at your LinkedIn profile today, and there's somebody else quite famous on there as well. So we're blessed by royal company. So, but welcome, and just want to give us a quick shout out to your club and your division, your district.
Absolutely. So as you heard, I'm a past district director of District 91 in the south of England, about 175 clubs, but I'm a proud member and current president of Wessex Speakers in Winchester, and actually we're celebrating in January of next year our 30 years since charter, so a club with a very proud history.
Excellent. That's some going and a great track record for a very successful club. So well done on that. So I was interested, Steve, because clearly you've built successful careers in IT, examinations, and now in law. Three completely different worlds. Was there a moment early on in your Toastmasters career where you looked around and thought, this skill is going to matter far beyond this room?
I think I need to admit that I think I'm a bit of a weirdo. I'm one of those weird people that actually entered Toastmasters not because I was fearful of public speaking or whatever. I actually loved it. But what happened when I joined my club, and I always say that I use Toastmasters as a bit of a gym for public speaking, to keep going with it, to introduce new skills, to practice different things in different environments. And what I realised was I really did enjoy it. I was really challenging myself in different ways. For example, I never used to, before I joined Toastmasters, I always used to avoid reading from scripts and reading from words, because I think that if you follow words on a paper and then you lose your way, the audience knows that sometimes. So I always try and move away from using notes. But I forced myself with several speeches during my educational journey to actually read from words. So it just proves there's everything, Toastmasters has something for everybody, regardless of whether you think you're a experienced public speaker, whether you enjoy public speaking. But yeah, undoubtedly, to the core of your question, I know how much I enjoyed speaking. And I'm told the occasional people likes to hear me speak as well, which is always a nice thing to hear. So in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, what job can I do where I get paid to speak? I think it was always somewhere in the back of my mind, to be honest.
Excellent, thank you. And just take us back then, Steve. So where was that arena that you enjoyed doing public speaking, which Toastmasters sort of augmented? Just take us back in time to that particular moment.
Well, it was an accident. So one of the things that I'm majorly involved with in my local area is cricket, and cricket. It's important for me to say how important cricket, the sport, is to me, because it was the start of all of my voluntary experience. My PE teacher at secondary school, because of my physical disability, was fed up of not being able to write me a school report for PE. So taught me how to score the game of cricket, and I've been scoring games for 30 odd years, and now I'm involved in admin. I'm chairman of my league, all that sort of stuff. But one day we had the end of a cup final at one of my local clubs. The chairman was supposed to come along and give out the cups and give out the awards. He got the date wrong. As secretary, I'm there with about 200 people, maybe 150, all the cups ready, all the medals ready, with no presenter. So I was left for the first time ever just to get on with it and speak to this crowd on this cricket pitch, which I've never done before. And I thought, I've just got to go with it. And afterwards I thought, that was actually, I really quite enjoyed that. And that's when I first realised that I really wanted to get into more speaking and have more opportunities. So it was that moment where my chairman had got the wrong date, where I was just basically forced into a situation where I didn't have time to think about it, which was amazing when you think about it, really.
So it was a really serendipitous moment. So if that had not happened, would you be the person you are today in terms of your speaking?
I honestly don't know. I don't think so, because I don't think I'd have sought out Toastmasters to think, right, how can I have an environment where I get to do more of this? And all of the things that have come off the back of being in Toastmasters and seeking out opportunities to speak. So, for example, one of my friends in the courts is a teacher at a local independent school. They had an end of year celebration recently where I was invited as special guest to address all of the parents and the children at the end of their year. None of that would have happened if I hadn't walked down that particular path.
Excellent. So I'm still intrigued in this journey then, Steve. So we started with cricket. Where did it go from there?
In terms of speaking, or in terms of...
Yeah, speaking, yeah.
Yeah, well... It then went straight effectively to Toastmasters, but then what happened was I then got more and more responsibility in the voluntary sector. So for example, I became a qualified trainer for Samaritans, so I was doing training for our new volunteers. I then ran for a role where I was regional training director in the south for Samaritans. These are all voluntary responsibilities. So I then was speaking to fellow training teams across the south. I was delivering training on a regional level, and I just had more and more opportunities quite naturally to speak, and it just kind of snowballed, really, Nigel, to be honest with you.
Excellent. And am I right in saying, Steve, that there's also an element or a time where you were a radio presenter as well?
That is right, yes. So I probably left. I stopped doing that shortly after COVID. I much preferred doing it in a live environment rather than doing it in a recorded way. And we had some changes to our studio and that sort of stuff. But yeah, that it is a really exciting but a strange experience, because unless you are listening to yourself on the output, you don't know who's listening to you, or you don't know how you're coming across. So you're sitting in a room with music and saying things, but of course you don't get the feedback necessarily of what's going on out there with the audience. But yes, I have been in the past a community radio presenter. So yeah, yes, well done on the research, Nigel. I'm very impressed.
Well, I have to say, Steve, my research assistant was somebody called Claude. If that makes any sense to anyone in the AI world.
Indeed.
I thought I'd go a little deeper. So cricket to radio shows to Toastmasters. Where next?
Well, so I, as a magistrate, which I've been doing for 16 years now, after a number of years, you get to then do extra training and become what's called a presiding justice. So very quickly, in the magistrates' court, there are 3 magistrates that sit there and make decisions. The person in the middle is the only person that speaks to the court. They chair the court effectively, or the court chairman. So you do extra training for that. So that's a different type of speaking, because obviously you're in a legal environment, but also you have to direct what happens next in the case, or you need to effectively deal with disruptions. If you can imagine that somebody who's being convicted of a criminal offence may be emotional, there may be a witness that's really struggling, so you need to be able to think on your feet, think of the right words, treat the people with dignity, treat the court with respect, and that is another challenge. So developing my skills as a presiding justice is also another element of speaking that I've had to learn over the years.
Excellent stuff. And also through some of the research, that I did, Steve. I love this next bit I want to mention to you now. It almost reminds me of the Stephen Covey element of listening with the intent to understand. But if I'm correct, you say great leadership isn't about being desperate to respond quickly, but truly about listening. How did the listening skills and evaluation disciplines from Toastmasters help shape you as a leader in either the voluntary or the career options that you took?
Well, I think it's really important to remember that everybody has a story and everybody has their own experiences and their own values. And certainly in either the voluntary sector or at work, just because somebody reacts in a particular way, if they're having a bad day and they're shouting at somebody or they're saying something to you in a way that you don't necessarily appreciate, it doesn't actually mean they're a bad person. There are a few people in life that we could probably categorise as, not nice people that we don't want to deal with. But generally, there'll be a reason why somebody has, reacted in that way. And so I'm really passionate about not judging straight away, understanding what that person's story is, understanding what their motivations is. But as a listening volunteer at Samaritans, I'm also very big on being invested in the questions we ask people, but being invested in the answers as well. The number of people that ask other people every day, "How are you?" but they don't necessarily really want the honest answer back, and we don't give the honest answer back, and we need to catch ourselves and actually realise that, I think, more often, because some people are hiding things they really want to share with somebody that really wants to know the answer to the actual question and get the true answer. And I'm really passionate about that, both as a leader, but also as an individual and a member of the human race, really.
Yeah, well, as you were saying that, Steve, I was thinking to myself, that's been more human skills, being very empathetic in a sense, and I guess being a good communicator allows you that space, freedom and scope to understand people in a better way.
Absolutely, and that's what it's about, just understanding what makes somebody tick and being there for them as a fellow a fellow human, really.
So here's what I would probably call a rocking chair question for you then, Steve. If you just sit in a rocking chair right now and take you back all the way to that point when you at that cricket session where you had to read all those things out, and look forward at the distance you've travelled and the things you've accomplished and the opportunities that you've grasped and taken forward to fill your bucket full of the stuff that gets you out of bed every morning. How does that make you feel?
If I stop and think about it, it can be actually, if I allow myself to really reflect and be proud about it, it's quite overwhelming, really, because when I was younger, when I was at school, as a disabled person that has difficulty with mobility and that sort of stuff, I never really knew what my route in life, how my journey was going to shape up. I really didn't. And you might have heard me say this before. People that are listening might have heard me say this before. But the paediatrician at the time when I was born said to my parents, "Steve's not going to get a normal job. He's not going to have a normal life. He's going to really struggle and need a lot of support." And I have needed support and do. But if I then think about the things that I've achieved, I've shook the hands of our now king. And I'm going to now practice law as a barrister. It does fill me with personal pride, and as I said, if I really force myself to think about it, actually it can be quite overwhelming when I think about that. So it's a great question.
But I guess if you look forward from that point way back when to say, I'm going to achieve all of this, you probably wouldn't have got out of bed the next morning because it would have been equally overwhelming.
No, absolutely. And I think I was talking to Olga about this earlier. There are little things that happen that you don't realise are significant. For example, during lockdown, that's when I decided to do my law degree, just because I wanted to keep my mind ticking over. That's all I did it for. I didn't do it because I decided at that point I wanted to be a lawyer. I just did it in order to keep myself ticking over. And because of that, it then unlocked the next chapter of my story, which is just incredible.
You can only join the dots looking back, can't you?
Exactly. Yes.
So I'm just going to finish this particular segment, Steve, just on a bit of sports trivia, because I'm going to ask you a question which I trust you'll know the answer to. But there's only one sport in the whole of the world that has no rules.
Well, I think you mean the fact that in cricket we don't have rules, we have laws. Exactly. There are 42 laws of cricket, and so hopefully I've got the point there from your quiz, Nigel. So yes, there you go.
Well, you've actually got 2 points, because 42, as we all know, is the answer to life, the universe, and everything as well. So,
there is that as well. Absolutely.
We'll finish on a high there, Steve. But thanks so much for this segment. We'll bring you back a little later with
absolutely.
all the rest of our guests. But thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Nigel. Cheers.
No worries, sir. Thank you. So next up is an award-winning executive communication and presentation coach with more than 20 years of experience helping Fortune 500 leaders, C-suite executives, and TEDx speakers, no less, command the stage and, of course, the red circle. As owner of her own professional speaking, training, and coaching company, and former president of the National Speakers Association in Virginia in the US of A, she has trained professionals at elite institutions like the Richmond Federal Reserve and Merrill Lynch. But there's more. She's also a multi-time President Club winner and accomplished television and radio host. Fun fact, she even had the honor of working alongside the legendary American television icon, Mr. Rogers, immortalized on the silver screen in 2019 by Tom Hanks himself. She lives by the philosophy that effective communication shapes outcomes far beyond the stage. Please help me welcome distinguished Toastmaster, Joan Bowling. Hey, Joan.
Hey, Nigel. Good to be here with you.
How are you doing? It's been a while.
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. And before we start, Joan, do you want to give a shout out to your club and your district?
That would be fantastic. I'm a 9-year member of St. Michael's Toastmasters in Richmond, Virginia. And for the past 15 years, ever since we began, we have been President's Distinguished. The club started off as a group of job seekers from St. Michael's Parish, and it just blossomed and grew and ballooned. And it's just a dynamic club. I love it so much. We said adieu to District 66, which we have been a part of forever. And with some mergers, we're now part of 219. So what it does is it takes Central Virginia and the beach, and then it merges it with Northern Virginia, the Washington, D.C. area, some of those clubs. So we've expanded, enhanced, and I'm looking forward to all the opportunities that it brings in this new year.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. In your introduction there, I mean, you've clearly, had a wide range of people that you've worked with, the TEDx speakers to C-suite executives. You're even a DTM yourself. What did Toastmasters teach you that perhaps no client-facing training ever could?
When I think about the day that I started Toastmasters, fast forward 9 years, and here I am, I think it teaches me still adaptability and flexibility and 100 years of table topics, thinking on your feet. For example, I am very fortunate in that I get to dabble in a lot of different communication venues. And by the way, doesn't Steve have a great voice? Maybe he could jump back into that voice work. He's got a wonderful voice. But I host television programs for corporate through a studio here in Richmond, Virginia. And they are 15-minute interviews, and they're in closed circuit for corporations. And it's meet the officers, like meet the C-suite, get to know, that kind of thing. So they're very professional, get to know kind of interviews. And one person came in, a lovely woman, I don't quite remember what her title was, but she's a very well-prepared lady. And we send out the questions just to review. We don't want to surprise anybody. We want them to feel very comfortable. And when I launched the first question, again, it's a 15-minute interview, she answered all my questions in 2.5 minutes. I remember thinking, okay, we still have, 12.5 minutes to go. But back to Toastmasters, Nigel, the flexibility factor, the adaptability factor, thinking on your feet, and what we do at every meeting is the keen listening skills. And so to be able to take from that conversation and go in a different direction in order to keep the conversation going. And it worked beautifully, and we nailed 15 minutes. And I'm always so appreciative of that weekly skill set that we learn through Toastmasters.
Well, thank you for that, Joan. I think Steve referred to it as a gym, like a mind gym. Is that how you refer to it?
I believe it is like a gym. There's always a new tool to lift, a new workout. Somebody's new in the gym. And I love that you can learn from everyone. And I always love that, when you first start something, oh my gosh, so many possibilities. What are the rules? What do I need to do? What's my next step? What's my plan? But as you walk through time, if you're patient with yourself, you uncover things that resonate with you, that you think, I can improve this. And I think that's the one thing I shared with you before. For communication, public speaking, interviewing skills, there's no ceiling. And there's also an opportunity every conversation to do it differently. And I think when I was thinking about, we talked a little bit about my encounter with Fred Rogers in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And the one thing that even as a college student, which is when I worked with him in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is that he had a great presence. And I probably didn't know that word at that point in time, but it was the permission for the audience to relax in front of him. And I remember being in the green room with him, and he was very calm. And with any conversation that he had, you were the only person in the room. And so that persona, which was truly Fred Rogers, he took that on the television screen, he took that on the stage, and he took that in one-to-one conversations. And it still impacts me today when, all the noise and the chaos that goes on in your head, it probably doesn't go on for you, but it goes on for me, to push that out and to be able to stay present and listen is the reward for both people in that conversation.
And do you think, and that's how Toastmasters Club activities mirror that philosophy and help people to build real world confidence?
They do.
Excellent. So just, you talked about Fred Rogers there. I did sort of name check, well, not the film, but do you just want to tell people who are listening in, if they wanted to catch up, if they're not familiar with that guy,
yes,
a little bit more about him, and also how his story was immortalized in that Hollywood film?
Sure. Fred Rogers was a minister, an author, and he was a pioneer in children's television broadcasting on television. He had a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in that he worked with a series of puppets, and those puppets, the goal was to help children understand their very adult world and to be comfortable in asking questions or leaning into safe environments. But what I found was it wasn't just a children's show, because he was a minister and he studied communication. He was an accomplished pianist, as was his wife in Pittsburgh. He really developed the skills of engagement. And those skills transferred to, obviously, the children on the television screen And I highly recommend that movie about Fred Rogers with Tom Hanks. And here's why. One of the funny things in the backstory I remember is the director told Tom Hanks, slow it down, slow down your delivery. Fred is very calm and very, I don't want to say calculated, but very genuine in his delivery, which was beautiful. But the movie doesn't show that initially. What it shows is a angry reporter that unfortunately in his mind got the task of interviewing Fred Rogers, and his goal was to take him down. And that's not what happened. It's a beautiful redemption story, and I would encourage anyone to watch it and just enjoy the story unfolding.
And can you just remind us the title?
The title is, I will have to look at it in break. How is that for impromptu speaking?
I know, we're live, aren't we? Do you know what? I got my researcher Claude to look at this today, and I found it out.
Yes.
So I wrote it down, and I haven't got it either. But we will put it in the postscript notes. And actually, maybe before we do that, let me just give a couple of shout outs then, Joan, to just a couple of people in the audience we've got tonight. So I'm just saying hi to Khalid. Lovely to have you here on the live stream from Saudi Arabia. So welcome and thanks for tuning in. I know you're a few hours ahead of where we are right now. We will come back to what that is. It a friendly day in the neighbourhood or something like that?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Beautiful. We get there in the end.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day for a neighborhood.
Tom Hanks sang the song.
Yes.
He did, right? It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah, and there you go. Okay, I love that. I love that. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, actually, Joan, as you were talking, if I was doing this 10 years ago, I was saying to one of our other guests before, so I'd be like a shaking wreck, like the serene swan going across the lake and really panicking under the surface. But listening to the way that you've spoken, and very similar with Steve as well, my breathing is sort of connected with your own, so I'm getting that natural rapport, so it's actually making me feel calm and collected as well. So thank you for that. You've obviously got that skill in the role that you do that exudes to the people that you work with. So excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
One thing I did want to move on to is in what you do as a day job with all your professional speaking, training and coaching, you talk more about your speak well philosophy. I just wonder if you could expand on that a little bit and also give us some linkages to where either Toastmasters enters or where things come back from there into Toastmasters at all.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Speak Well strategy was developed last year by me. And I remember entering the world of professional speaking and just starting. Now, I had Toastmasters to test things out, which is beautiful, and I still do today. But I really didn't know the current situation, what my brand was, or steps I could take to move ahead. And the Speak Well strategy, what it is a series of interviews with a speaker, either current or prospective, and we take a look at what things resonate with them. You want to be genuine and authentic on the stage. You want to speak as you are, not as somebody else is. So we take a look at a current situation that might be attached to a goal. We take a look at your brand and what resonates with you. And then we take a look at what you're trying to achieve. And we want to match that with who you are and where you want to go. It's a beautiful document that you can use either to facilitate on your own, to use with someone else, or to work with me as we move along those goals. And it's something that I wish I had when I first started off. Everybody learns their lessons in their own way. And I think, what do they say? That the school of hard knocks, you learn more than if you just breeze right through and just nail everything. Mm-hmm. But this really was a labor of love in that I wanted to be very intentional to use this as a tool to help speakers know who they are and what audience that they want to resonate with.
That's excellent summary. Thank you so much for that, Joan. I was just thinking as you're saying that once somebody told me that an ideal client is somebody exactly like you. And the reason I thought that is because you mentioned this is exactly what I would have liked at a point in time. So is there an element of that in there that you're giving back to yourself, but also for people that think in a similar way or got similar goals and challenges they want to overcome with that structured way that you put things forward?
One of the things that I love about where I am right now, and maybe always, is the pay it forward, to being able to give. There's such a joy in being able to help others. And that is the one thing about Toastmasters, is there is always somebody there to help. At least that's what I found. For example, when I was competing and I was in the semifinal round in 2018 for the international competition, I wanted to look at my speech through 3 different lenses: the humor, the head, and the heart. And I approached 3 different Toastmasters who I felt really could hone in on those components. And those tools helped me so much to get better at my speech. Again, the speech that I gave at the club level was different than the area, that was different than the division and the district and then the semifinal, because I feel it got better. It got more enhanced, more like me, more like I wanted to give to the audience. And so the giving for this tool is that we establish a trust relationship, and that way we can become more honest with each other. I go back to what Steve said with the daily hellos. How are you? I'm fine. Are you? And so with this Speak Well strategy process, since we've worked together with new speakers and speakers who want a little bit more depth, we really spend the time together. And the more time you spend together, the more that trust bond develops. And it can't help but enhance either the level of service, the level of presentation, or the level of product that you deliver.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Joan. I have to say that trust is one of my foundational core values. I think without that in life, many things start to fall away. Fundamentally, my other 2, by the way, are energy and responsibility, and that makes a really good triad for myself. But thank you for reminding us on that. I'm going to go back to my researcher Claude here. If I've got this right, but I think you've also got a love of the theatre and the arts. Is that a true summation? I think from your bio. But what I was just coming to here is when we get into the world of performing arts, we play a role. We potentially we bring it to life in a different way, which could challenge authenticity. So, but having said all of that, are the skills that you feel from that world can translate to the boardroom as well? And is there a way in the boardroom with the C-suite that they can treat it like a piece of theatre in order to completely, but still remain authentic in message and communication?
Mm-hmm. I think when we think about presenting, we think about maybe memorizing, and that's a theater thing, even though there is improv for sure. And so we might think of not being our authentic self. But 2 things. Everybody has a story, and your story perspective is a little bit different than mine. As a matter of fact, when I tell clients to keep a story file, I have 3 different columns. You have the story, you have the purpose of the story, and then you have the audiences or message that it might pertain to. So there's movable parts in there, but you still have the same story. What do you want to uncover in that story? And then the other thing is, in telling a story, being in the boardroom, sharing it with your C-suite, you want to be able to talk as if you're talking at a dinner party. You wouldn't be so formal. You would say things like, I want you to know right now that this is really important to me, and I'm going to share 3 ways that I'm going to back that up. So there's a way to manage that conversation that it's merely conversational, it's your story, and it's in front of an audience. The key is knowing who your audience is and knowing yourself. And you put the story with that together, and it's a thing of beauty in any boardroom.
So, sorry, I'll take from that last piece as well that self-awareness is also a massive part of this as well. To understand yourself fully is probably a better way of understanding others as well. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Joan. I'm going to move on to our third guest in just right now, actually.
All
We'll
right,
come back and get you back
Nigel.
for the round robin a little bit later. But Joan, thank you so much.
All right, talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to give a couple of shout outs and also one to James Finnegan. Thanks, James. I know you're a fellow Hollywood actor starring with Colin Farrell in that thing I interviewed with you maybe a couple of months ago. So thank you so much for getting that title for us. I think we got there in the end, but excellent for that. Also want to give a shout out to our former past district director, Elizabeth Jordan as well. Welcome, Elizabeth. Nice to see you here this evening. And what I'd like to do now is move on to our third and final guest. And rounding out our panel today is really a powerhouse known as the Communications Performance Coach. I was going to say he's a multi-millionaire, he might be, but he's a multi-award-winning founder of what's known as the Thrive Now group and a highly sought-after TEDx speaker. So there's a link here because we've got quite a few of our guests here this evening that are connected with the TEDx circuit. As I mentioned, he's an organizer and a coach, and his career is defined by tangible results. He's helped launch over 150 businesses. He's scaled 50 more and saved over 100 from closure. And in the process has coached not 1,000, not 2,000, but 3,000 leaders into their dream roles. He's lent his expertise to all of the 11 councils within Northern Ireland, recently won the Business to Business Startup of the Year in Northern Ireland. And he constantly reminds us that communication is not just a soft skill, it's a high performance development life skill, a human skill, if you will. Please welcome District 71's very own Programme Quality Director, Kevin O'Reilly.
Hi, Nigel.
Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for asking me to come on this evening. The guests have been of an extremely high caliber.
Okay. So it's a case of follow that.
I'll try. Well,
let's start with the easy one then, Kevin. Do you want to give a shout out to your club?
Absolutely. I hail from Belfast Toastmasters. I don't want to say it's the best club in District 71 because I'm not allowed to do that. But, take from that what you want, Nigel. Take from that what you want.
What did Carlsberg used to say on their advert? Was it
Probably.
Yeah. You can say that and get away. Because I would probably say that Birmingham Ballroom was...
Absolutely. Yeah.
We can move on from there. So 3,000 people that you have helped into their ideal, their optimum roles. But before you set up that Thrive Now group, you were just a regular Toastmaster. So what was that moment, that catalyst, that sliding doors moment that told you what you were learning offered something more than just confidence in public speaking?
Well, Nigel, if I can take you even back just slightly further than that, even before I just joined Toastmasters, I was a retail area manager for a large retailer across the UK and Ireland. And come COVID, I had to make 651 people redundant and then make myself redundant thereafter. And I didn't see this as this midlife crisis moment. I seen this as a huge opportunity, a midlife opportunity. And I sat down with this huge big piece of whiteboard paper and I started writing down 100 things that I was really good at. Now, it sounds easy, but when you get to about 40, 45, I started getting a bit ridiculous, like taking the jar off the lid for my wife. That was what I was good at. And I started, and it took quite some time to write all of these things down. And then I started to use what I refer to as the Socrates triple filter. So Socrates, a philosopher who used a specific triple filter to help him make decisions quicker and more accurately because of efficiency and productivity. and I sort of set my own criteria. My own criteria is a very simple one. It had to benefit me, it had to benefit my family, and it hadn't to be illegal. Now, the last one's really important because, it has to be legal. But when I started to try and move these 100 things I was good at down in smaller numbers and look at this through a business lens, I couldn't really work it out. There was something missing from the Socrates triple filter. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to create a fourth criteria. And the fourth criteria was it has to help and benefit other people. And that totally changed everything for me. So what I did then every other day was I halved the list until I came to about 2 different ones. And one was to help people with communication, help them overcome their fears, and also help them into the roles and the lifestyle that they want. And obviously the other one, Nigel, was male stripper. But what are you laughing at, Nigel?
No.
But I realized that obviously the looks and the body will go eventually. So I settled for the communication performance coach.
Do you know what? Joe got me into a space of breathing. Now I've got an image in my head. I just can't get rid of. So I'm not sure where this is going to go from here. But I was wondering where the removing the jarly came on the list. How far up the order?
About 45, and it started to get ridiculous then thereafter.
But we know the answer's 42, don't we? We don't. Fine. Excellent. So just moving on a little bit. Thank you so much for sharing that story. One thing I did want to look through your bio today, Kevin, is you mentioned that too many leaders think like they're just trying to survive the moment rather than lead it. And I just wonder if you could put some colour onto that. How did Toastmasters help you to move from surviving to commanding?
Well, very, very basically, Toastmasters give me the confidence and it gave me the space to practice. And I think it was Steve that said it's like a gym for the mind and gym for the public speaking.
Yeah.
Steve, I wish I could have said that I was good at public speaking, but I was on the other side of that scale. I was absolutely petrified of it. And with being an area manager for that organization, I had to give presentations. And I do recall a time when I went to give a presentation that I was physically shaking. And it was a presentation around things I knew, people in the room I knew, and I just couldn't work out what was going on. And I got to the stage where I became really fed up with that. And I thought something has to change. And I started to do as everybody does, started to Google what symptoms, what was wrong, and so on. And Toastmasters come up. And I thought, that's just strange. Let me have a look. I've never heard of it before. And I started Googling Toastmasters, and then I found Belfast Toastmasters. And at that stage, they were all online. And I remember going into the waiting room and then going into the virtual room online. Didn't turn my camera on. Sat for about 6 months, didn't say a word. And then there was this lady called Sharon Austin, and I hope she doesn't mind me calling her out because she was the biggest catalyst. I credit a lot of my success to her because she understood her audience better than she realized. She knew that I needed a nudge or a kick in the backside. It was one or the other, but I needed something just to get me out of that status quo. And she did that for me. She helped me move forward. She gave me the opportunity. She pushed me in a direction I wanted to go in, but was afraid to go there. And coming through the ranks from president twice, area director, division director, club growth director, and now program quality director, I'm starting to understand our audience at a real deep level because I also trained as a behavior analyst. And I wanted to understand people's behaviors at their core. And what I started to realize was that our audience in Toastmasters, the people that come to Toastmasters, sometimes need a nudge. And my mentor put it very well. He says, sometimes, Kevin, people need an arm on the shoulder or a kick in the backside. But whatever motivates. And I thought, that's strange. I'm the guy that needs the kick in the backside. I'm not that guy anymore. I don't need that anymore, but I needed that to get started. But Toastmasters completely changed my life because I had such a great opportunity and a business idea that I wanted to move forward with. I just didn't know how to communicate that.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Kevin. And you put a timeline on this.
Yeah, so that was in 2020.
And you've already progressed through quite a few district roles, program quality director. So just for those people out there that are interested in the leadership track of Toastmasters, how do you find time for that and for your daytime career?
That's a great question, actually. I suppose the answer would be different who you asked. If you asked me, I could tell you one thing. If you asked my wife, she would tell you something different. I also have 4 children as well to add into that lovely mix of things also. But I think that I'm extremely lucky that I have someone who understands me at home here and understands what I'm really passionate about. And when you're passionate about something, Nigel, you find the time. It's not that you make the time, you find the time. And all too often I hear people saying, I don't have the time. And as soon as I hear that, all I hear is, it is not important enough or high enough value for me to place it high on my priority list. So we're always communicating. We cannot not communicate.
Yeah, and fundamentally, it's one of the greatest human skills that we're not necessarily that great at the race.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nigel, you're 100% right. I have seen so many absolutely brilliant communicators, but not brilliant doers. And I've seen so many brilliant doers who are not great communicators. And especially with an interview process or a pitching contest, it's those people who are not good at that communication don't get to do the do. And you and I had this conversation just slightly beforehand. Helping individuals and seeing them succeed fills my cup, and it doesn't leave any room for any negativity to go in. And that's a big thing for me. It's and I think it was Joan that said, it's paying that forward, it's paying that back. And I love that. I love the idea of that. And Toastmasters, the value of service, it just speaks to me. That speaks to me tenfold. I love that value.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for finishing on that. And just to our audience out there, apologies if I'm hearing this fine. But what I'm going to do now, Olga, if we could please bring back Steve and Joan to join us with Kevin. And let's see how this goes. So between all of you guys, we've got, from senior operational roles in the highly adversarial world of the courtroom. Joan and Kevin, you both coaches, high stakes speakers, and with what you do, Kevin, how does that psychological safety net we build in Toastmasters help people build that resilience they need for these sort of high pressure environments? Maybe Joan, if I come to you first.
Thank you, Nigel. Are you asking how in the corporate world I build that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, how I build that with them. It starts with a conversation. People want to work with people that they're comfortable with, that they feel that they can have a conversation with, and also feel that they're making an investment in understanding them, their situation and their personality and their goal. And I think the key component of that is listening. And I work to perfect my listening skills, knowing that I may not be the right fit for them, but I'm happy to have that initial conversation. And if I can't help them, I'm happy to steer them to someone else who might be a better fit. And I think that gives who I'm speaking with in a new relationship a great comfort, and it relaxes them. I'm not selling them anything. We're having a conversation, and I'm finding out what they want to achieve, and we're seeing how we can move that forward.
Yeah, thank you. I think as well, Kevin, that goes back to something you said before about knowing your own future in terms of what your goal was, how you're going to get there, and just needing that mentor or yoga character to help you get to that position?
Yeah, absolutely. And just even pulling back onto what, adding to what Joan was saying, and back to your original question, Toastmasters creates the environment that people can grow. It's the only way I can describe it and doing it justice. It creates such a safe place for you to feel and feel forward. You can get up and you make a mistake, you forget your lines, you crumple up your speech and you throw it away, and people will applaud you. People will give you positive feedback and one little thing to improve on. How we do things in Toastmasters, I have never seen in any organization. The way they create the psychological safety. And it's clear that what we do in Toastmasters works. It's been an organization for 102 years now. So the system works, the structure works. And I love how we feel safe enough to go and practice, like Steve said, the public speaking gym, to go and practice in the public speaking gym and get feedback. And I'm sure all of us here are Toastmasters, and we've all had the little feedback slips. Well, at the very beginning, when I started Toastmasters, I kept them in a glass jar, all those little feedback slips. And anytime I ever felt a little bit of doubt, I used to go in, take one or two of them out, have a read at it and go, okay, good, and then put it back in again and just mix them up. And that was really helpful for me to help build my confidence as well.
So your own little jar.
Correct. But that wasn't mine, it was coming from others.
Yes, the feedback.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And Steve, onto yourself in terms of the resilience that Toastmasters has given you in your professional role to cope with those high pressure environments. Is there any particular things that you can call on at all?
Well, do you know what? I'm just going to add, because I know that people have picked up on the analogy that I used of using Toastmasters as a gym of public speaking. The only difference, I think, and an important difference between the gym and Toastmasters, the actual gym, is that people aren't looking at you in terms of competition. People aren't looking at you and being jealous like you do in a gym. Sometimes I know of people, and maybe I've done it on occasion, where somebody is running on the treadmill next to you slightly faster than you are. You kind of, turn up the dial a little bit because you can't be outdone, or you put another 5 kilos on the weights. That isn't what happens in the Toastmasters environment. We're not in competition with each other. My point is that it's a safe environment. And I think because we have a safe environment, we can then build our resilience, because it's okay if we fail. And actually the reality is we probably haven't failed. We probably just can do something a bit better next time, which is what the whole point is. So I think that Toastmasters builds resilience because I think it's that safe place that we provide. And I'm always delighted when I hear how many guests say, even on their first visit, I feel like this is a safe environment to learn and to develop, and I want to come back. So Toastmasters across the world is creating that safe environment for us to build resilience, which I think is fantastic.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Steve. I know across the, if you like, the catalogue of all Toastmasters skills, we've talked a lot about listening in this particular episode, but I just wanted to, I'll start again with yourself here, Steve. If I was to say to you prepared speeches or table topics, which one springs to mind first, and what benefit does it give you outside of Toastmasters?
I think the ability to think on your feet and to be able to do things unexpectedly is really, really important. So, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it depends what you want from Toastmasters. But where I am, actually, I get more value right now from practicing my impromptu speaking than I do my prepared speeches, probably because I've done a lot of prepared speeches, and that's not where I see my current developmental needs. So personally, I go table topics now before I think about prepared speeches, but it differs from person to person.
Thank you. And just coming to yourself, Joan, I know that as an exponent of live television, you've had to deal with some amazing... I remember a story you're telling me about some parrot some time ago and having to fill some time with that gap. But which particular speaking Toastmaster skill would you lean on the most outside of the club environment?
Table topics for sure. And Kevin and Steve, Nigel is referencing when I hosted live television. I still do. and there was a pet show, hour-long pet show. I had 3 big macaws, 3 big birds. They were clipped. They were on the perches, and the director gave me a 10-second countdown. At 7 seconds, the first bird flew off the set. At 4 seconds, the second one flew off the set. At 1 second, the last bird flew into the vet's hair. And so they closed the camera in, and the director said, "Joan, extend the time." And I'm thinking, what, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? So table topics is, I will always bow to the table topics. And think about it, 99% of our conversations are table topics, aren't they? They're impromptu with a partner, with a boss, with a colleague. They're on the spot. And to be able to frame what you want to say in the tone that you want to say it in 60 seconds, 2 minutes, maybe a little bit more, get to the point. What a beautiful thing to have. Still working on mine. I'm sure I'll have other opportunities for surprises.
Thanks, Joan. And Kevin, I'm going to come to you now.
Well, I'm going to give it a full house. It is table topics for me also. And how it really works for me in the real world, I do a lot of podcasts. I actually done my 175th podcast last week, and you do not know what the guest is going to say. So, Joan, I completely understand. I've never had any macaws on my show, but I don't know how I could fill that space. I must look for that archive somewhere and watch how you did that, because that sounds like a masterclass in table topics.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm just conscious. Sorry, I'm hearing myself with the echo. Apologies. This hour has absolutely flown by, and there's so much energy and so much great things that have been shared during this particular discussion that we've had here this evening, for me at least. And I just want to finish up by just sharing with you what I think is my favourite question. It's a reflective question. So, Steve, I'll start with yourself again, but what one thing, maybe it's something you've heard or something you've said, or something that's been in discussion here this evening, that's key to you, that you'd like to share with one of our listeners, well, not one of our listeners, but all of our listeners here this evening? What stuck out the most for you?
So there is a saying that comes to me that I sometimes mention at our meetings, which is that you don't know what the best version of yourself looks like, and neither does anybody else. And so it's a phrase that I love to come back to, because it just shows that we can always develop, we can always find things that we can do better, and it keeps us going and keeps us always on our toes. So I think that's what I would go with. But also, thank you very much to District 71 for having me on a guest this evening. It's been very enjoyable. So Nigel, thank you very much indeed.
No, you're very welcome. And thanks also again to our series producer, Olga, as well, for doing that. We've got your phone number, Steve. We know where you live. We know where to come and find you. So thanks for your support. Kevin, same question to yourself. What's really resonated with you this evening?
What's really resonated has been the individuals that you've had on as guests. Toastmasters creates a huge network of individuals. I mean, I'm sure that Steve and Joan and yourself, Nigel and Olga, can lift the phone and call someone in Australia and then someone in America, or someone in Europe and someone in Hong Kong, and they will lift the phone and they will help you out. And that's what I kept hearing from Steve and Joan tonight, that Toastmasters is not just a public speaking gym. It is an opportunity to network, grow your network, and grow as a person. So that's what I've taken away from tonight. And again, thanks to Nigel and Olga for putting it on tonight and inviting me. Thank you.
Oh, you're very well. I think you know where you live.
You do.
I think from just getting to the essence of what you're saying, it's about community in it,
yes,
which I think is vitally important. Thank you, Kevin. And finally to yourself, Joan, what's really resonated maybe with what you've said or remembered, or a great callback, or maybe what one of the guys has mentioned? What's going to live with you after tonight that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'm going to echo what Kevin said. Nigel, you and I met during the pandemic, and we met because of an online club in which people from all over the world got together. And that provided such a richness for me in getting to know cultures and people and being in conversation with then one of the upcoming international presidents, Morag Mathiasen. She was part of our club. And I had so many opportunities as part of that club. The people across the world is small, but the world is rich with amazing people that Toastmasters continues to cultivate. I believe it is the people.
Well, thank you so much. And I do agree. Some people say it's about presenting, overcoming your fears, building your confidence. It's the leadership skills. It's the active listening skills. I know we love triads in Toastmasters, but there is a fourth part to the trilogy, which I do think is community. So thank you guys for echoing that. And to our listeners here this evening, I trust that you've enjoyed our conversation here this evening. Toastmasters Unplugged for District 71 is actually taking a month off, and we'll be back in October with a brand new, eclectic, enlightening and entertaining session from our series producer, Olga, who I'd like to extend some amazing thanks for all her hard work behind the scenes. As a reminder, this is episode 29. So a lot of effort has gone into all of those programs that she's done. So thank you to that, Olga. I also want to thank our special guests tonight, to Steve, to Joan, and also to Kevin, but most importantly to anyone that's out there listening live or maybe getting this on catch up. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I'm Nigel Smith. I've been your host for today, and we'll see you all next time out. Thank you.